Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today, you got some sad news coming out of Rio de Janeiro. It's Tuesday morning and my day started off normal. I got up, I'm starting to get ready for work. I always just, I'll pick up my phone or my iPad and just see, what news might be hot, what's going to be the weather for the day. And I just happened to see some chatter on my YouTube channel today. And, just from the general aspect of what I was reading, seemed like it was some bad news, and including, somebody had been victimized in Rio. I didn't even get so much that it was in Rio de Janeiro. I just found the fact that, I saw somebody's message started off saying my condolences to the family. So it was the first news of the day. So it wasn't even news. This was something that I saw in the comment section on the YouTube channel. So I wanted to figure out what was going on. So, I punched in a couple of phrases, a couple of words, and it led me to a couple of stories. And, pretty soon I confirmed this was the story that they were talking about. This often happens, a lot of times I don't even get news just from the direct mass media. I just get it from what people are saying online, comment sections, or just something that people might post on social networks before I even get to the media. So anyway, today's story, Jamaican-American tourist found dead in Rio de Janeiro. After meeting two women, man may have been the victim of the good night Cinderella scam. So if you hung out in Brazil or Rio, you've heard of this crime before. I'm not a I'm not a super, nightlife person. I think that part of my life it ended maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 some years ago. That's not my lifestyle. But I've always told people, you want to hang out in spots, particularly in a environment that you're not familiar with. You really you need to be careful. So anyway, before I get into the details of this tragic story, definitely like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell. With that said, let's find out a little bit more about what happened to this guy in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, so today's story is by Lara Barth, Talita Queiroz, and I had some extra information from the Brasil Escola and the Bungie UOL website. So this is the passport document of I thought he was, American born, but as it turns out, he's a Jamaican with American citizenship. So let's see what happened. He was found dead in Copacabana. Most people, I mean, even people who've never been to Brazil have heard of the famous Copacabana beach, the ritzy neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. But before I talk about this, let me put a little bit more context into this. Whenever I see stories like this, it takes me back to the first plans that I made to travel to Brazil. As I said, my journey to Brazil started on Christmas Eve of 1999. And, starting from that day on, I just immersed myself in Brazil. I became fascinated. I'm like, I got to visit this country. So by late August, I was ready to make my first trip to Brazil, which was in the Northeast in Salvador Bahia. Anybody who's been to Brazil is familiar. Brazil is, Salvador Bahia is like the African cultural center of Brazil. Primarily African culture, a lot of dark skinned people there. And I just remember when I was planning my first trip there, I remember a friend of mine was asking me, like, because I was doing, I did about 8-9 months of research because I wanted to be prepared for what I might see, what I was interested in seeing, things I needed to look out for. And she says to me, well, if I want to go on vacation, I just, book a flight and I go. Why are you doing all this research? And I'm like, this is a country I've never been to. It's a good idea to always research about some places that you've never been. How are you going to know if the country's in a civil war or something? How are you going to know what areas not to frequent? What areas might be dangerous for tourists? You know, that first trip I went to Brazil, I had a basic understanding of Portuguese, but I wasn't anywhere near even, intermediary. I was speaking a basic Portuguese at the time. So these are all things that we have to be careful with when we travel overseas. I mean, to travel to another city, you need to be familiar. I said, I never released this video, but I was in Chicago a few weeks ago and looking for, some places to stay. You'll come across Airbnbs or whatever, and they'll have some relatively cheap prices. I can remember the name of this one particular area in Chicago where I was looking, but the price was just much cheaper than other Airbnbs. And when I did some more research and I looked at the top 10 most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago, this area that I found was either number two or number three in the most, areas that may be unsafe. So this is what I'm saying. You have to do some research about anywhere that you haven't gone. So I'm going to get more into this story, but I have to say, people always ask me when I first started going to Brazil, because nowadays a lot of men are going to Brazil specifically to find women, whether it's just for, one night, just a fling, some fun or whatever, or somebody's actually looking for a woman they want to click with and marry, have a family. Some people go to Brazil on business. There's a lot of reasons that people go to Brazil, but my reason for going to Brazil was always the culture and history of Black Brazilians in Brazil. That was what attracted me there. It was, meeting the people, seeing the people. That was a part of it, but it was never my intention to go to Brazil and seek of meeting women. Just you're going to meet people every day just from being there, right? People go to Brazil for all types of different reasons. I'm just saying people need to be careful with where they're going. This speaks to this segment of population that people have nicknamed the passport bros. And, like I said, I was going to Brazil decades before this whole idea of passport bros came up. This is as we get into this story, we'll see that this could be a message specifically to those guys that consider themselves passport bros. This is something you need to be aware of, because this is something that happens all the time. It doesn't happen in just Brazil. It happens in Colombia. It happens in Dominican Republic. Wherever you go, you should do some research about where you're going. Okay. I believe that, some of the things that people get caught up with, it's like, wow, this famous stories about what happens to Americans when they're in certain countries. And I'm just like, I'm never going to pretend like I know everything about Brazil, but certain things that I see people fall victim of, or something that happens to them, like, wow, if I had to talk to you, I could have, I could have told you about that, before you just went down there basically with blindfolds on. I've done like 3 or 4 live streams now, and this is something that we consistently say. Just jumping on the plane and going to Brazil without doing any of your own research, learning about the culture, learning the language, learning the history, it could lead to a problem. I've known guys who've gone to Rio and come back with these crazy stories. Oh man, as soon as I got off the plane, these guys grabbed me and they put me in this limousine. I was surrounded by all of these type of women. I was like, that just wouldn't be me, because that's just not how I roll. I hear stories like that. I'm like, dude, you don't know where you might have ended up. The story today is kind of like it's kind of like evidence of what I'm talking about. So let me get into the story. The Rio de Janeiro Civil Police is investigating whether Dwayne Antonio Morris, 43, an American tourist found dead in an apartment in Copacabana, Rio South Zone, was a victim of the Boa Noite Cinderella, meaning good night Cinderella. It's a scam that's been going on for some years. According to the report of the agents looking into the incident, military police of the 19th Police District in Copacabana were called to the property on Rua Budiois de Carvalho, or Carvalho, by Morris's friend on Thursday evening, August 8th. But by the time they arrived, the man was already lifeless. Again, this is the guy, Dwayne Antonio Morris. Again, he was a Jamaican-American. This is the friend, what is it, Jamel Major. I guess he's from Oakland. The friend, Jamel Major, told the police that he and the victim had landed in Rio de Janeiro the night before on August 7th. And together they decided to go to the Lapa neighborhood, where they met 3 garotas de programa, or what they call girls. Dwayne returned to the apartment in Copacabana with 2 of the 3 women, and the next day, the 8th, when Jamel returned to the room where they were staying, he found the victim lying on the bed with no signs of life. Major also noticed that the victim's belongings had been taken. He then ran to the doorman and asked for help. Upon being heard by police, Major stated that he was confused and claimed to have ingested some substance that would probably have been offered by the call girls to the victim as well. Another website that I saw said that when the victim was found, his mouth, he was like foaming at the mouth. And talk a little bit about that a little bit later in this article. So Dwayne, the victim, had dual citizenship. He was Jamaican and American. The United States consulate in Rio de Janeiro regretted the death and said it is closely following the investigations. Okay, we kind of understand what a picture like this means. That's why you got to be careful with where you hanging out in bars and clubs. Anyway, the U.S. consulate in Rio de Janeiro confirmed the death of the U.S. citizen on August 8th. We offer our sincerest condolences to the family for the loss and stand ready to provide consular assistance. We are closely following the investigations of local authorities into the cause of death. Out of respect for the family during this difficult time, we have no further comment. The CCTV footage of the building where the pair were staying can help police identify the woman or the women and find out if they are part of a gang that specializes in this type of crime. The crime of Goodnight Cinderella is a practice already known and monitored by the civil police of Rio. In July this year, police arrested 2 women in the act while trying to commit the crime against a German tourist. The pair was located in the vicinity of the Arcos da Lapa, this region right here. Anybody who's been to Rio is familiar with this area right here. A lot of people who've never even been to Rio, they'll just remember these arcs, right? I was just there. What was that? I guess it's been about 3 or 4 years since I was last here. The crime known as Boa Noite Cinderella consists of applying a high concentration of drugs to the victim's drink, responsible for suppressing the central nervous system, causing him to lose his senses and fall into a deep sleep with amnesia. After the victim becomes totally unconscious, the criminals steal all their belongings and flee the hotel room, leaving the person unconscious. The case is being investigated by the Capital Homicide Police Station. An investigation was carried out on the spot, and the agents are carrying out due diligence to clarify the case. The building security cameras will be instrumental in identifying who entered the building with the tourist. Okay, so these just pictures of some, what they say, garotas de programa. The doorman of the building, who was on duty on Wednesday night, has also issued statements to the civil police. According to investigators, witnesses are yet to testify. The victim's body is at the Instituto Médico Legal, or Medical Legal Institute, and will undergo examinations that should determine the cause of death. So this photo right here says, what is o que é Boa Noite Cinderella? What is Goodnight Cinderella? I think you can tell from the picture. Goodnight Cinderella, also known as a date rape drug, is the name given to a scam in which a generally nice-looking guy puts a cocktail of drugs such as gamma hydroxybutyric acid into someone else's drink. Usually found in the form of tablets or drops, these central nervous system depressants, when taken with alcoholic drinks, alter the level of consciousness for up to 3 days, leaving the victim vulnerable enough to be robbed and or raped. In addition, they can cause intoxication or death through dehydration. So this is what I was speaking on when they found the victim. He was foaming at the mouth. So apparently this drug causes severe hydration, which would possibly lead to death. Of course, we're still waiting on the results of the examination. I guess we'll know for sure, with the results of this test, comes out. Because they dissolve easily and are colorless and odorless, identifying a glass that has received such doses is an almost impossible task. This is a relatively frequent occurrence and usually takes place at parties, nightclubs, bars, and on the beach, with the same initial effects as alcohol. After a while, the individual feels sleepy and has difficulty reacting to physical and or psychological threats, basically obeying all the commands dictated by the scammer. Due to the embarrassment of the victims and the lack of clarity about the sequence of events, few people file complaints about this scam with police stations. As a result, statistics are underestimated and police action is restricted. To avoid becoming a victim of this type of crime, be careful. Don't take strangers into your home. Don't accept drinks from strangers, I'll say keep your eye on your glass. It says, I'm just like, don't let your drink or your glass out of your sight, basically what that should have said. So anyway, sad story here. I definitely want to keep pay attention to this story just to see if this is what actually led to this guy's death. Just like I said, a tragic story. The media is all over this story in Brazil. Tourist found dead in Rio was seen entering an apartment accompanied by two women. Police investigate involvement of women in the death of a tourist in Rio de Janeiro. This story here, and this is not even including all the rest of the stories that's just online. These are some of the Brazil's top television and news network. Global is reporting it. Police are investigating a North American tourist found dead. American's friend found dead in Copacabana says, let me see what it say here. Says to the police that both had gone back to the apartment with women. Tourist is found dead in Copacabana in Rio de Janeiro. All the top websites in Brazil are reporting on this story. The other thing I want to point out here is that this is a common occurrence. If you go to YouTube and just punch up, say, for example, Boa Noite, Cinderella, you'll find just numerous stories. An elderly woman is found dead after a romantic encounter. I can't read what that it says. Suspect applied the scam, Boa Noite Cinderella. A man is robbed and killed after being a victim of Boa Noite Cinderella. Is another one. Woman is arrested and she's a suspect of applying the Boa Noite Cinderella scam. Woman makes 20 deaths, or I guess she led 20 people to their death with Boa Noite Cinderella. It says the Boa Noite Cinderella scam can kill. It's a fatal substance. That's what this particular thumbnail says. This is on the recent story right here. Tourists found dead in Rio de Janeiro. And it goes on and on. Two people arrested. They're accused of killing a man from Chile with the Boa Noite Cinderella scam. And it just goes on and on. So this is something that people have to be aware of. I'm not telling anybody not to travel. Wow. A woman kills an elderly woman with a high dose of Boa Noite Cinderella. And it just goes on and on. Feel free to do the research yourself. Obviously, I think there would be more information on this if you can read Portuguese. But, again, this is not me telling you not to visit Brazil. I lived 9 years in Brazil, and I've had 24 years of my connection to Brazil. So, I love going to Brazil. But these are things you just have to be aware of. Don't just pack your bags and, fly out somewhere without learning a little bit about the customs, what's going on in the streets. Where are places? What does the American consulate say about American tourists in Brazil? There's no way. I'm not going to tell everybody that this will definitely happen to you if you should travel overseas, particularly to a place like Brazil. But do your due diligence, do your research, and be careful where you are, because scams and crime goes on in Brazil just like in any other country. And they, a lot of times when people sense there are American tourists around, they smell money. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up, in the same way that you could be a victim of the same crime that went down with this Jamaican-American who was apparently, I would say he was in Rio, looking to have some fun with some of the ladies. But let this be a warning. Anyway, I want to know what you all thought about this story. Sad story, tragic story. I hate to see anybody lose their lives. You just have to wonder what he could have done to have avoided ending up, dead. What did you guys think of today's story? Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this. I wouldn't tell you to like this story because of the ending, but like the fact that you got this information. Share this story, for people who are, in a hurry to travel, visit other countries, particularly Brazil. Go and have fun, but just be aware of your surroundings and do your own research. Definitely subscribe to this channel. Click on that notification bell so you'll be one of the first people to see my videos when I put them up. With that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post.